Hey, this is Dr. Priyanka Venugopal, and you're listening to the Unstoppable Mom Brain Podcast, episode 45, Doing B- Work. So, I have never ever done this before, but I am recording this podcast on the go. And the sound quality may not be the absolute best, and you might hear me huffing and puffing because I am taking you all along for a walk, kind of to demonstrate and practice what I preach, which is going to be what I'm talking about in this episode. This is going to be one of those unedited, unfiltered, it's going to be edited, but it's not going to be very scripted the way that I really often bring you my podcast episodes. If you've been following along my podcast for a while, all 44 episodes up until now have had some structure. I usually think about my podcast as an opportunity where I teach a concept and then I give you some specific tools to take and tangibly implement into your life. And for me to prepare podcast episodes like that, I really do put a lot of time, energy, and bandwidth into the content that I'm bringing you because I want the best quality stuff for you, because I know your time is valuable and I want you to get the most out of your experience. That being said, I also know that every podcast episode does not need to be A+ work. And that is what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about doing B- work and still getting massive results. So the reason that I am really talking about this is because there is a common thread that I see with a lot of my clients and a lot of working moms, and I still work on this, and this has really been a lot of my work. It is that we are trying to do A+ work in so many areas of our life. And in doing the A+ work in so many areas of our life, we end up having kind of like a B- existence. Let me just say that again. If you find that you're trying to do A+ work at your job, A+ work with your kids, A+ work in your marriage or in your partnerships, A+ work with your family, A+ work with your laundry task list, your the dishes and the meal prepping and the exercise schedules, you might find yourself living a B- life. And that is really the intention of today's episode, is really helping all of you see that doing A+ work in so many areas of your life might be, I'm not saying it always is, but it might be leading to a B- existence. And it's not surprising when you are having and experiencing a B- existence that you just want a break, right? It's not a surprise that at the end of the evening, when you do your, evening plop down, as I like to call it, that you find yourself, I just need a break from all the A+ing all day. Enter nachos, cookies, ice cream, and a glass of wine. So here's what I've been thinking about. You know that phrase, and if you know me, in real life, or even if you're one of my clients, I get phrases wrong all the time. I can just hear my clients laughing at me right now because they know exactly all the crazy nonsense that I say. It's not actually how the phrase goes, but just bear with me. There's a phrase that is something along the lines of, what you give is what you get. How many of you have heard that? What you give is what you get. And here's what I want to tell you. That does not apply to high-achieving working moms. Not even in the slightest. High-achieving working moms, I think of myself as one of them. And if you're listening, then you likely identify with some elements of being a high-achieving working mom. You already know that you give a lot, right? That's the A+ing. You're A+ing all over the place. You're A+ing, you're giving a lot at work. You're trying to give a lot with your kids, in your partnerships. You're trying to give a lot to going grocery shopping and meal planning and making that next spreadsheet to organize your life better. You're giving a lot. And yet, you're not getting a lot. So, that phrase, what you give is what you get, doesn't apply to high-achieving working moms. And let me tell you, really what drove me to even bring you on this walk, can you hear me huffing and puffing? It's because I'm going up this hill. So welcome along for some B- podcast work. Let me give you this perfect example. There's going to be many little tangents. I'm going to come back. I promise I'm going to keep coming back. And the purpose of this episode is going to make sense to you. So usually when I record a podcast, I was sharing with you, I really prepare for it. I plan it out. I know exactly what I want to say, what I want to teach, what I want my audience to really walk away from the podcast with something tangible. And you should see my setup. I have as we say, I want to catch my breath while I finish the sentence. I have an A+ setup at home. I have a gold star mic to record podcasts, and I have the perfect setup. I have my large computer screen in front of me. I sit down with my coffee. I'm like in the right mental space to deliver high quality podcast content. Here's the thing though. I realized in preparing even for this podcast episode, which has been on my mind for a while, doing B- work, that I was trying to do A+ work in so many areas of my life that I was experiencing B- results. So what B- results looks like to me is things that deeply matter to me. Some of my personal desires, some of my personal goals that I have just for me, not my family, not my work, not everybody else in my life, just for me. My personal results were suffering. So I would say forget B-, like I think we've entered the C category with how I was feeling about some of my personal desires and results. Now, here's what, as I took an inventory, and I'm going to talk to you about how to do this. As I took an inventory of exactly why that was happening, it is because I found myself doing A+ work in lots of areas that was detracting from me being able to do A+ work for my inner desires. So this podcast is a perfect example. I would be spending A+ amounts of time, A+ amounts of energy, A+ amounts of bandwidth on preparing. A podcast is just one example. I love preparing podcasts. This is not a problem because I love doing it, but I do this with everything. I do this with my children. I do this in my relationships. I do this with, my unstoppable group, my coaching experience, and my clients. Like, I am always thinking about delivering and offering A+ results in all of these areas, right? But what was happening, because every single day has 24 hours, I have a finite amount of energy and bandwidth, that by putting A+ into all these areas, I was experiencing B- results. And what that actually looked like was actions and activities that would take my personal results farther, that would help me deliver A+ results to myself, for my body, for how strong I want to get this year, for how I want to feel, all of those results. All of that was taking a back seat. And so that was when I started to notice this quite a while ago. So this is something that I have been really working on for myself personally, but I know this is going to be super helpful for somebody listening to know that when we have, and all humans have a constraint, a finite amount of hours in the day, a finite amount of time, energy, and bandwidth. I want you to take a moment. You can pause here and just really think about, where is your time, your energy, and your bandwidth actually going? So one way of doing this is you can actually look at your calendar. Look at your calendar from the last week and ask yourself, where did every hour of my week actually go? Where did it actually go? Not where you wanted it to go, not where you planned for it to go. Where did it actually go? Real talk, guys. Now, we're not doing this from a lens of criticism or judgment or like, I can't believe myself. We're not doing any of that. This is coming from a lens of true curiosity. Okay, just let's get curious. Where did that time go last week? Now, I'm going to give my personal example, and I think that this will resonate with many of you, is I have had a lot of plans. If you look at my planned calendar, it will say things like meditate, exercise, meal prep, meal plan, cook with the kids, play with them, like sleep on time, get 8 hours of sleep, drink all the water. Like, plans are beautiful. Plans look really good. But what I want to know is what actually happened. And if you took a little snapshot of reality, if you were like a little bird watching me in my house last week, you would see that that's not what happened, right? There's a lot of time spent scrolling social media, a lot of time spent like drafting a podcast episode and then like redrafting it and thinking about it and then drafting it again. There's a lot of time spent thinking about actual problems that I'm trying to solve in my life and then like thinking about them and thinking about them and thinking about them, ruminating over them, worrying over them. There are so many circumstances in our life that we are trying to navigate. So what I want all of you to think about is how much time do we spend in the act of actually solving those problems, and how much time are we spending distracting ourselves from solving those problems? And this is, I think, the trouble. What a lot of high achievers do, and I know because this is me, this is what I see time and time again, is that and listen, if this is you, just know it's normal. It's completely normal. We're going to be solving this together. We're going to go on this journey together. I want you to know that if this is you, it's not a problem. It's totally normal. But the time that you spend distracting yourself from actually doing the work, with the time that you spend not solving the problem in like active, lit up action, is really not A+ work. So here's what I want to say. Let me give you a specific example. So we think, because I know how it feels, Priyanka, like, how dare you tell me I'm not doing A+ work? I'm just keeping it real, my friends. Listen, A+ work is not worrying about the work. A+ work is not feeling nervous about taking action. A+ work is not thinking and thinking and thinking. That is keeping you from creating A+ results. Now, here's, I think, the biggest misconception that really took me a long time to actually understand. Because so much of my time, energy, and bandwidth was going to thinking about the problems, thinking about the solutions, thinking about possibilities. Like, I could do options A, B, and C. I could do, the draft of podcasts. I could do the very first draft. I could do that, but it could be better. Let me work on it a little bit more. Let me make it a little bit more clear. Let me make it a little bit more simple. We spend so much time on that step of thinking that we could make it a little bit better. We could tweak it. We could maybe do one more iteration, one more draft, just like, then it would be super good. I want you to think about the delta. Think about that space, that time. That is preventing you from having A+ results in your life. Because whether you choose draft 1, draft 2, draft 3, or draft 4, I promise you, the results will not be that different. Now, I can hear you arguing. I know, because I argue with myself all the time. Priyanka, but like, draft 1 is just like the initial thing. Like, draft 1's never good enough. You have to get to draft 2 or draft 3. That's fine. Listen, I'm not here to tell you to always use draft 1, okay? But what I want you to get more curious about, I want you to zoom out and ask yourself, are you stuck on draft 1, or are you actually iterating and making progress? And what I have found, I think this podcast is such a great example, is what I found is that I would do my draft 1. I would love the concept of what I'm teaching. I would love the concept of what I'm sharing. But I'm like, oh, but it could be better. Do you know that thought? It could be better. It sounds so good. It sounds so noble. Like you're here to do such good work, right? I know, because you care. This is, again, threads of high achievers. You just care a lot about creating big things. You care about doing good quality work. Here's what I want you to know. That thought, it could be better, is an unending thought. It can always be better. It can always be better. Can I say that? Let me just say that one more time. It can always be better. How do we know? Because we could just do like draft number 7, draft number 8. I could make it better and better and better. But what happens when we stay stuck in that phase of action? Like, what happens when we get stuck in taking action and really stay in that space of draft after draft after draft, of waiting and waiting and waiting to make things better and better and better? We pause creating results. So the time, energy, and bandwidth that you spend on drafts 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you're not doing something else that's adding value to your life. So this podcast was such a good example because I realized that, okay, my draft 1, I knew the principles of what I wanted to talk about, which is like getting comfortable with B- work, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. But I could do draft 1, 2, 3, and 4 and like get to like A+ quality, or what I think is A+ quality. But the time, energy, and bandwidth that I was spending on drafts 2 through whatever number of draft I could be spending on improving the quality of my life's existence, of coming outside for a walk. That's what I'm doing right now. Today is Saturday. I normally don't work on the weekends, and I have a fairly busy week coming up, which is part of what spurred this whole entire thing on. I realized that if I wanted to record this podcast on time, given some of the circumstances in my life and how kind of my schedule is working out for next week, I realized I was going to have to do draft after draft, and it was going to cut into other parts of my life that I didn't want it to cut into. I didn't want to sleep later. I didn't want to wake up earlier. I didn't want to cut the workout. I didn't want to cut time with my family. I realized what I could do is B- work, which means I'm not using my A+ Gold Star podcast mic, and I'm not using my full setup, and I don't have a screen in front of me with my bullet points that I would love to share with you. So here I am on my walk, which I knew I wanted to do today. And I'm like, you know what? I'm bringing you guys along. And I wanted to show you that, yes, this is draft one. This is effectively draft one. Do you know how we know? It's because this is just happening. I don't have my bullet points in front of me, and we're not going to do draft number 2, 3, and 4. We're just going, and what's happening is going to happen. We'll see how it turns out. And could this draft be better? Could this podcast episode be better? I am sure it absolutely could. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, she takes a lot of tangents. Geez, she says a lot, or she pauses a lot, or that. She's already said that. She's repeating herself. Welcome to B- work. This is me doing B- work. And I'm telling you, it's uncomfortable for me. And I'm sharing me doing this in real time, in real life, as a real life example, because I want you to know that on the other side of B- work, I'm alive. Nothing is happening to me. Doing B- work might feel scary. It might feel like, oh my gosh, am I going to do B- work? Oh my gosh. There is a feeling there, a feeling of fear or nervousness or worry, right? What's going to happen with B- work? Let me tell you, this episode is going to get aired and I will be just fine. It's possible some of you might be like, that was terrible, right? This is the fear, right? So the fear is somebody's going to come around and be like, that was a terrible episode. And here's what I have to say. Goodbye. If it was terrible, I'm sorry. It was terrible for you, but it was better for me. Now, I think that I'm going to again, we're just meandering. We're going where the conversation goes. But here's what I want to tell you. That's not a bad thing, right? So you might do your draft one and somebody may not like it. One of you guys might not like this podcast episode being so all over the place, if that's even what it is. I don't even know if I'd call it that. I'm actually really proud of how draft one's coming out. How about you guys? But I want you to think about, somebody listening to this might be like, oh, draft one was not that great. I wish that she could have, done draft two and been a little bit more bullet pointy. And I wish. Somebody might be a little disappointed with the result of your draft one. Somebody might even make a comment on it, right? You can imagine that your kid, your partner, your colleague might be like, listen, draft one, not so good. Guess what? It's okay if they do. And this is, I think, the biggest thing that drives why high achievers work so hard. Why is it that high achievers, forget work so hard, are overworking to the point of being burnt out in their real life, which is why you guys go to the chips, the nachos, and the wine. The reason is because you're overworking in your real life. I want to help you stop overworking in your real life. And that starts with just knowing that the reason, always understand the reason for why you're doing what you're doing is because you want to feel a certain way. The reason that you want to keep delivering, forget A+ work, because I know you're not just okay with the A+, you want A+++. Am I right? Or the idea of an A- or a B is no, that's just terrible, because then you would feel so disappointed in yourself. It's because you want to experience a certain emotion, accomplished or proud or worthy or valuable, and you do not want to experience inadequacy, disappointment, frustration, self-doubt. That is why you overwork. And what I want to tell you is that the way that you work, the amount of hours that you are clocking, the amount of time, energy, and bandwidth that you spend thinking and feeling and doing the work that you are doing is not where your emotional experience is going to come from. that feeling that you want, why is it that we do the A+ work in every area of our life? That feeling that you want of like, that was so good. You know, like when I have like a podcast episode I feel so good about, I'm like, oh, that was so good. I love that podcast episode. It was so good. I'm sure that somebody is going to be helped on the other side of this podcast episode. I feel proud. I feel so proud of myself and the value that I'm putting out in the universe. So for me, it's a feeling of proud. That's the feeling that I want to have. That's the feeling that drives me to show up, right? The feeling that I'm trying to avoid in doing drafts 1 through 10 is inadequacy and doubt and like not good enoughness, right? Whatever emotion that would be, not good enough, right? Here's what I have discovered, and here's what I want to tell you. I'm going to pause again because we're on the hill. What I want to tell you is that the feeling of pride doesn't come from you doing more. The feeling of doubt or inadequacy or even discouragement doesn't come from you not doing enough. It always comes from what you're thinking, always. And so if you keep thinking, this draft might not be good enough, draft 1 might not be good enough, it could be better, I want you to know that that sentence that you're telling yourself, it could be better, I could do more, I could have picked a better option, that sentence in your mind, number 1 is optional, and number 2 is the driver of your emotional experience. So what I want to share with you is that our work together this is going to be super hard. I mean, it might be incredibly simple too. So let's see. I want you to report back. Drop me an email. Send me an email, info@theunstoppablemombrain.com, and I want to hear your experience of this episode. Let's just make it real. Tell me your real, honest truth. I am totally open to receiving everything you have to say. Give me all the feedback. Keep it real, keep it honest, keep it kind, but like, listen, if you didn't love it, it's okay. I want to hear about it. What I want to tell you is that there is a possibility that the reason that your body is heavier than you want it to be, the reason that you're feeling heavy in your mind is because you're offering yourself no A+, quality, actionable things to do that serve you. So for example, for me, things that I just for me desire, the goals that I have were reaching my ideal weight, which I've done. And for 2023 is to get stronger, right? So I've been sharing with you all about this. Last week's episode with my bestie Ruth, we really got into fitness and macros. But my goal this year is to get stronger. So by the time I turn 40, it's happening in May, I want to feel my body just feel ready to take on the world, feel ready for the next half of my life. And here's what I know. If I don't do the work, nobody's going to do the work for me. Nobody's going to put a dumbbell in my hands and be like, Priyanka, lift the dumbbell. Nobody. That's my job. It's my responsibility. If that is a desire that I want, I have to take action. But what has happened and what happens historically for so many high achievers is because we are taking so much action in all of these other areas, we just don't have the time, energy, or bandwidth to pick up the dumbbell for ourselves. That is the purpose of this episode. We're going to pause again. Whew. Out of breath. So here's what I've realized. For me to feel like I'm living the A+ life that I want, I realized that I cannot anymore focus on just the actions that I'm taking. So I want all of you to think about, if you look at your calendar from last week, like we did earlier in this walk, if you took an inventory, curious inventory, where did your time go last week? Was it really going? Was every single thing on your calendar creating results for you? If you were honest, I'm guessing if you are missing results this week, if you don't have a result in your life that you want, it is because something last week did not create it for you this week. Let me just say that again. If you are missing a result in your life right now, if you did not lose weight this past week, if you did not get stronger this past week, if you did not feel more peaceful, more calm, more confident this week, it is because something last week created it. So here's what we get to do. What we get to do together is we get to just understand, I wonder what if I look at my calendar, I wonder what in my time, my energy, and my bandwidth from last week, am I giving too much time, energy, and bandwidth to? Is it scrolling social media? Is it ruminating and worrying and like second guessing my decisions? Maybe it's doing drafts 3, 4, 5, and 6. If you really looked at your calendar with that lens, you can see so clearly where you are overexpending that is creating a downstream effect of you not having certain results. So here's what I wanted to offer to you in this episode. I know you love doing A+ work. Can I just tell you, this is like a little tangent because we've done many already, so we're just going to go with it. I remember when I was a kid, I think I was probably maybe 5, no, not 5, I was probably 6 or 7, and we would get worksheets in elementary school. And not only would we get worksheets, my family, what we would do in my family is we would do extra work at home. So if you're following along, I don't know if this is just like my family. I mean, it's not just my family, I know. So many families are like this, but my mom would have extra work for me at home. So even like summer break, she would be like, we would go to like the teacher shop and get all the workbooks. Guys, let me tell you, I loved gold stars and A+. So like I would do my worksheet and then my mom would quote unquote grade my worksheet and she would put A+++. I counted those pluses. You better believe I counted those pluses. Or the other thing she would do is, like if it was good work, she would write good. Or if it was very good, she would write V.good. So I'd count how many V's were in front of the good, like V, good. The reason I'm sharing this is because if you have been a little addicted to doing A+ work, I want you to know that it's normal that you have, because this is what our families of origin, what society, what our educational system is teaching us. It's teaching us to do A+ work. And the trouble is, at a really young age, because we emphasize A+ work so much, what we start to do, and I know I did this, is at some point along the way, we started to associate our value and our worthiness with doing A+ work. So the idea of not doing A+ work, like, oh my gosh, like A- or B plus work, and Priyanka here is talking about doing B- work, like, is she crazy? Let me tell you, the reason that this was such a problem is because in your youngest years, at some point along the way, the idea of doing less than A+ gold star work touched on your value and worthiness in some way, flavor, shape, or form. So it's not surprising that as an adult, you're like, no, thank you. I will keep my value and worthiness, and I will know, because it's on the line, I have to keep doing A+ work. But as we keep this, as you all know, because we said this at the very start of today's podcast episode, that has led to a B- existence. So I want you to just we're just planting seeds today. I want you to really, really think about how, if you could believe that your value and worthiness, just you being your unique flavor of human, who you are is always 100% worthy and valuable, just because you're here on this earth, contributing to the way that the earth is just functioning today. That's just you, because you are who you are. You're 100% valuable and worthy. And then just let the work be the work. And the intention of this episode is not saying that you try to fail on purpose. I mean, listen, that could be fun too. The goal is not to say I'm going to go out and just do like B work or C work on purpose. The goal is just to say you don't have to be so rigidly attached to always doing A+ gold star work. And if you knew, if your focus and your filter was not on how much you're doing, but on what you're creating, what would shift for you? What would change in how you spent your time, energy, and bandwidth? Would you do drafts 2 through 7 if you knew that draft 1 is going to get the job done? I love this because I think that this is a hard shift for so many high-achieving working moms, but when you make this shift, I'm telling you, your life will change. When you realize that you don't have to do more to achieve more, that you could do, there's a minimum amount that you could do to create massive results, so much more space will open up for you in your life. You're not going to wonder, when you get home Friday evening, like, oh, I just deserve a break. You get to solve that sentence in your mind at the root. That's what we're talking about. How do you solve this at the root? This is how you solve it at the root. So I hope that this was helpful for you, because I think that I'm still practicing this. This is going to be one of those episodes that's just like a one shot, we're going. And really to talk about this concept of being willing to do the uncomfortable thing, being willing to constrain down how much you're doing so that you can create more for yourself. Just know, if you really just did B- work throughout the whole week, even with weight loss, this is such a good example. We're just going to take a tangent here, another tangent. If you really think about how you would, like the results you would have at the end of the week, instead of, if you have a plan for your week, you're thinking about how you want to eat or how you want to work out, think about your plan for the week. I want you to imagine that it did not have to be A+. Monday through Friday, Monday through Sunday, however you're measuring your weeks, it did not have to be A+, 100% the whole time, that you could still hit your goals that week by doing B- work. I want you to imagine how much space that would open up for you, how relaxed you would feel. You wouldn't feel the pressure and the need to do it perfectly right every time. And the reason that I want to emphasize this as a weight loss example is because what I see happening time and time again is you might have an imperfect moment. Maybe it wasn't A+, maybe you overate the nachos or you had the extra wine and the scale's up 1 pound. The disappointment that you feel after the scale goes up by the 1 pound, because you don't catch it, you just think like you're just keeping it real, you quit in that moment. That's the reason you don't create results that whole entire week. That one day, that one imperfect moment, you let that derail you, rather than knowing overeating the nachos every now and then or having the extra glass of wine and the scale going up by 1 pound every now and then is never ever a problem. You can do B- work when it comes to weight loss and still lose weight. This is something that, I mean, right now what we're talking about, if you're watching this via video, you're welcome. You saw me huffing and puffing up and down the hills. It's on, you can watch the video version of this over at theunstoppablemombrain.com/45 if you want to see the video version of this. But here's what I want to tell you. This is not just something you can do as an intellectual exercise. For what we're talking about today, this is me planting a seed in your mind, in your brain, to know that you've been doing A+ work because it feels super important. Sometimes doing the A+ work is creating a B- existence for you. And it's possible to flip that around. You can start doing B- work, as crazy as it sounds, and create more of an A+ existence, more A+ results in your life. And here's what I want to tell you about this specific topic. What I'm saying is going to sound good. You're listening to this and you're like, yeah, like, oh dang, like that does sound good. Oh yeah, like I want to do that. Here's what I want you to know. You can totally go and put this into implementation right now. Just listen to this episode. But I also want to tell you that working with a coach to do this alongside you is going to skyrocket results. It's one thing for things to be an intellectual exercise. You can't download this off the internet. This is something you have to do in real life practice, where you put your plan into action and you watch the B- happen and you feel the disappointment and you get coached. This is what we are doing inside the Unstoppable group. So I want all of you to really pause and think about, what results do you want? Stop thinking about how much you have to do or not do, how much you have to eat this way or not eat this way. That's the wrong question. I want you to really ask yourself, what results do you want this year? Do you want to be living more of an A+ life? Do you want to have more space, more calm, more relaxation? Do you want to feel lighter in your mind and in your body? These are results. And to get these results, having an experienced coach is seriously going to be so incredibly valuable. Which kind of takes me to the last point that I want to make in this podcast episode, which is the Unstoppable group is opening for enrollment February 10th to the 17th. You can learn all about it over at theunstoppablemombrain.com/group. Go and book your consult. That's the only way to get into this group, because this group is intimate, it is small, it is kept small and intimate on purpose because of the flavor of coaching that I do with my clients. I call it deep dive coaching, and it is incredibly intimate, and it is only for high achieving working moms who are ready to get all in on their dreams and goals. That's what makes this room so high quality. And I want you to know that the only way to be in this room, to get in this room, is to book a consult with me, and we will talk. You and I are going to talk on a consult call. We're going to talk about you, your dreams, your vision, your goals for yourself. And I want you to know that you have to have done zero work to be in this room. So when I say that the women in this room are seriously badasses, they are amazing, they have not had to lose a pound to qualify to be in this room. You don't have to qualify to be in this room. You have to have done zero work. You have to have done nothing to be in this room, but simply have one quality, which is you're all in on yourself, that you just want this so much. And then I'm the coach that will help you get there, because I have done this work myself. It's seriously the best thing. So do not wait. You can go over to theunstoppablemombrain.com/group, where you can learn about all of the features of the group, how the group works, when the next group is, like the dates the next group is open, exactly how to get in. And then when you feel that like inner self saying, yes, I am so ready for this. Hell yes, I'm ready to reach my ideal weight and live more of an A+ life, then you need to get yourself into this group. And the way we do that is on a consult call, theunstoppablemombrain.com/connect, CONNECT. You can go and book your consult, grab a spot, because spots are limited on purpose. But this is the best work you will ever do in your life. You don't have to wait for retirement to feel better. You don't have to wait for your kids to get older. You don't have to wait for summer vacations and holidays to be over. You don't have to wait for that next vacation to pass. Your life will pass you by like this. I do not want that for you. I want more working moms to have better quality lived experiences, because it's available to you now. You don't have to wait for that anymore. You don't have to qualify for it anymore. You don't have to earn it anymore. High achieving working moms have worked so hard. I can go on this topic. You've already worked so hard. I used to tell myself, I think when I was younger, like, when I finish medical school, then I will fill in the blank. Then I will feel more relaxed. Then it got to, OBGYN residency. When I finish residency and become an attending, then I will get to focus on myself. That's when I'll get to relax. Then I had my kids. When my first one's a little bit older and potty trained and sleep trained and, going to school, then I can focus on myself. Then I had my second one. Do you see, our life will keep throwing us real life circumstances. This is why I say you have to learn how to reach your ideal weight and feel better living your real life, not a fantasy life where the kids are in school 24/7 and you have no hurdles coming up and like work is easy. I teach my clients how to reach their ideal weight living their real life. There is a lot happening in the world right now. There are layoffs happening. There is hard moments happening with your children, with your spouses. Things are going awry often. And what I want to show you, what I want to teach you how to do, is how to navigate your real life experience in a way that feels authentic to you, in a way that creates so much more agency and power, because I promise you, your life doesn't have to change for you to feel better, for you to live lighter, for you to reach your ideal weight. It doesn't have to. I could just keep going. Should I keep going? I could keep going. Oh, this is draft number 1, so maybe I shouldn't keep going, but I could. And I want you to know that you don't have to wait anymore. You just need one quality to be in this group, and we will get to that together. You don't have to even fully believe that it's possible for you. I think that sometimes that's the other one that comes up a lot that I see on consult calls, is my clients that now work with me, when they first started, they're like, I don't know if I can do it. They have that thought, like, I don't know if I can do it. Like, there's been so many times that I've tried in the past and it hasn't worked, right? Is that you? I see you. That was me too. And I want you to know that it's normal that you have that thought, because you haven't created the results yet. You have no evidence yet, right? And I think most high achievers are very, very driven by results, especially you that are like science-led, like me. I'm like, where's the evidence? Show me the data. I hear you. And I want you to know that when you look at your life's data, when you look at every failed past attempt that you have ever tried, that cannot be the source of your evidence for the results you want to create in the future. If you keep looking at the past, look at all the times that I tried and it didn't work, and you use that to inform this decision, you will keep recreating your past. So what I want you to know is that you don't have to fully be able to imagine your future. You don't have to be able to fully believe that it's possible. You just need a glimmer of it. You just need to believe. You just need to have a moment where you're like, yes, I can see that this is possible for me. I can see that having an experienced coach that has done this work, that has a specific step-by-step process, I can see how that is going to solve this problem. That's all you need, a glimmer. You just need a glimmer. I have enough belief for the both of us because I think that I have seen the impact of what this work does. So there are really two qualities you need then to be in this group. You need a glimmer of belief, absolutely. And you just need to know that you being all in on your desires, wanting the A+ lived experience is possible for you, and you have to decide, do you want it? I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode, draft number 1, and report back. Tell me how it went, if you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed this version, because let me tell you, we're going to do some more of these. We're going to do some more of these because I really enjoyed it. And you know what? I think that matters too. I love it when you all enjoy content that I put out, but it's also important to me that I enjoy it too. And so I'm just here to say, I really enjoyed this. This was super fun. And that's all I have for you. This Friday, if you don't know, if I haven't already shared it at some point in this episode, this Friday, I'm hosting my next live webinar. It's called Quit the Strict Meal Planning and Do This Webinar Instead. It's a little cheeky, but it's totally true. I think that so many of us, as I've been kind of talking about in today's episode, we focus on these strict plans, like perfect, beautiful planners and calendars and spreadsheets. And that's important. Having a plan is important, but that's 20% of what you need. You need the other 80%. How do you take massive action when you don't feel like it? Like, I'm sorry, Friday night, when I'm like, I don't feel like, not eating the massive plate of nachos. Like, how do you take action? So this webinar is going to be for you because I'm telling you, we're solving the weight loss struggle for high achievers in this room, and it's starting in this webinar. And then of course, the group is going to open for enrollment. So if you want to check out this webinar, theunstoppablemombrain.com/webinar, and you can go grab your seat. I feel like I've given you guys multiple avenues to find your way into the unstoppable universe. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye.